His own mother. 14-year-old burnt for allegedly stealing a neighbor's phone. And authorities dispel Ebola fears from the visiting Sierra Leone soccer team. Plus, the facts, the views and reviews of the controversial Lamu land. And tonight, EcoJournal returns with the new farming trends in Uhuru.
KTN Weekend Prime with Yvonne Okwara.
Good evening and welcome to KTN Weekend Prime this third day of August 2014. We're glad you made the time to join us. And if it is Sunday, you know we have our weekly discussion checkpoint. As you can see, some of my guests are already here. We're waiting on two more as we conduct our conversation today. We're taking a look at the President's directive on the revocation of titles in Lamu. Is this the solution towards ending the crisis that we have seen in Lamu, specifically in Peketoni and surrounding areas? Was the president within the law? Today we have people close to the president who advise him on land. We also have the director of survey within the Ministry of Lands. Any questions you've got as regards that audit that was asked for by the president? And indeed, what is the way forward from now? Will we see prosecutions of those people that were allocated land? Or, for example, of the former Lands Minister, James Orengo? We will be discussing all of that right here on Checkpoint. So do make a point of joining us. And any questions you've got regarding land, today we have the authorities right here with us. The hashtag on Twitter is Checkpoint. On SMS, 22155 is the number you can reach us on. Keep your comments coming in and we will incorporate them in our discussion later. We also do have the top stories for you today. And let's start off with the news this evening. A child from Nairobi's Ngomongo area is nursing serious injuries after his mother tied up his hands with a polythene bag and doused them with kerosene before setting him on fire. This followed a complaint by one of the family's neighbors that a phone had been stolen in the compound. The mother immediately suspected her own son, subjecting him to this torture. KTN's Sharon Momanyi visited the ailing child and now reports.
At the Kefri Medical Center in Babadogo area, tears drip from the eyes of this 14-year-old boy. He suffers immense pain, not only physical from the serious burns on both his hands, but also emotional, as it is his own mother who committed the inconceivable act.
Huyo mama akakuja shule akaanza kusema ati simu yake ilipotea. Sasa walimu akamwambia ati mambo ya nyumbani hawezi ongelelea shule. Sasa akamwambia waningoje nyumbani. Sasa vile nilifika home jioni, mama hata akiongea na mimi, huyo mama alikuja tu kwa nyumba akauliza mamangu tu bila alisikia hivi akamwambia ati wewe sawa, ngoja babangu akuje. Sasa vile mama alitoka, mamangu akachukua mshipi akanifunga na mkono, akachukua lesa akanifunga na mdomo, akafungua redio akaweka sauti yote juu, alafu akachukua majuala akafunganisha kwa mkono yangu, akachukua mafuta taa, alafu akawasha kiberiti.
The mother is then reported to have locked him in the house to avoid the scrutiny of curious neighbors. Acting on impulse, the boy devised a way to escape from the locked house, his den of torture.
Baada ya nichoma nilimdanganya ati nenda kwa choo, nikakimbia police station. Nikaambia polisi mamangu amechoma. Sasa vile sister yangu pia akafika police station, sasa polisi wengine akaenda na mimi hospitali, wengine akaenda na sister yangu nyumbani.
He says he was burnt in full view of his siblings. He tells us that this is not the first time the mother has physically abused them.
Kwa nini? Hii si mara ya kwanza kunifanyia hivi.
At the Ruaraka police station, we verify that indeed the boy reported the incident here. We did not find the officer commanding the station at the time of coverage, but officers on duty confirmed the incident and that efforts to apprehend the mother, who has since disappeared, are underway. Regrettably, not the fate of the missing phone, which was the eye of the storm.
Naambiwa leo asubuhi hii babaka alikuwa hapa akasema simu yenyewe ilipatikana kwa nyumba ya jirani. Lakini huenda mamake hakujua, lidhani mwanawe ndiye aliiba simu. Akamfunga kwa nyumba na kamba, akamchoma mikono yote.
At the moment, the boy's father is looking after him in the hospital. It is said that a mother's love for her child is like nothing else in the world. This boy's case leaving one to wonder how a mother can be so cruel to her own child. Sharma Mani, KTN.
Indeed, some serious questions raised there by Sharon Momanyi. Let's move now to something that is causing alarm around the world, but here in Kenya, apparently there is no cause for alarm. So says the FIFA agent who handled the Sierra Leone football team at the center of fears of the deadly Ebola virus. But as Ian Mafula reports, the mere fact that the team was allowed into the country raises serious questions about possible negligence concerning such a critical issue.
On the 31st of July 2014, a spirited Sierra Leone national football team checked in at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. The group was on transit, ready to take the Seychelles team in the ongoing African Cup, but this was not to be. They were barred from boarding the connection flight on the instructions of the Seychelles Immigration Department to the Kenyan authorities.
We do different matches as a Kenya Symphony.
Francis Gaido, a sports agent from a FIFA agency based in Kenya, says the team was shocked by the move by Seychelles. Further, speculation was rife on Kenyan social media of fears of a possible transmission of the Ebola virus.
They were very disappointed. They really wanted to win on the pitch. They didn't want to get the 3 points. But now they have them. They've qualified to the group stages. They're just also disappointed that maybe the Seychelles authorities waited for them to board the flight. They should have alerted them before when they were still in Freetown.
With a 60% fatality rate, no vaccine, and the worst recorded outbreak in history, there are only a handful of Ebola survivors. Recent outbreaks have hit Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone with a death toll of over 700. Facts that prompted the Seychelles government to forfeit the African Cup qualifying game and withdraw from the competition rather than allowing Sierra Leone's soccer team in their country.
Seychelles had written to them and to CAF asking whether the game can be played in Kenya, but then CAF declined, mostly because of CAF rules.
The team was first accommodated at a high-cost Nairobi hotel, but later relocated as could not continue to meet the costs. It is reported that the team left Nairobi this morning to return to their country.
They were stranded here and they were forced to make arrangements and to book a returning flight. So their first flight was initially meant to leave on Tuesday, but then they changed and luckily they got space.
Our attempts to reach the airport department to confirm whether the team was screened for Ebola were futile. However, according to Francis, who was with the team throughout the stay, the coach admitted to having undergone a thorough screening. Ian Wafula, KTN.
Now, it has emerged that the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission had raised the red flag over what the Commission's final report called fraudulent land procurement in Lamu. The 2012 report was handed over to President Uhuru Kenyatta in May 2013. Now, it warned the government of potential land issues emanating from the higher value of land due to the Lamu Port Southern Sudan Ethiopia Transport, that's the LAPSID project. Ben Kitili now delves into the TJRC report and its misgivings over land problems in Lamu County.
Grabbing of Lamu land.
The latest probe into dubious land allocations in Lamu County is only the latest chapter of an age-old record of land problems in the region. And some of those problems are foreseen by the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission. TJRC warned the government of a number of avoidable problems concerning land in the county of Lamu. The TJRC final report states that Lamu's land problems were compounded by fraudulent land procurement in the region, as well as failure by the state to address well-known historical land injustices. The TJRC report also pointed to land procurement in Lamu following the launch of the multi-billion shilling Lamu Port South Sudan Ethiopia Transport Project, LAPSET. While testifying to Tjrc, Lamu residents said that Nkamani Ranch belonged to their forefathers. However, the report said that the ranch was illegally acquired by a top military officer who advertised it for sale for 235 million shillings. The residents cried foul over the fact that somebody else was going to benefit from their land.
The Lamu people basically have no titles to put to the fore. So the people who are going to benefit, if in a case either the government negotiates to buy or compulsory acquires, will be acquiring from people other than the Lamu people.
The Tjrc report also cited the failure by subsequent governments to effectively allocate the natives' land, whereby most of Lamu was categorized as government land and the indigenous population classified as squatters.
The settlement principle or direction was that 60% of the people settled should be people indigenous to the area, people ordinarily in the area. And then 40% were supposed to be other Kenyans who are landless. But that formula was never used in Lamu at any single material time.
The Tjrc report is yet to be discussed in Parliament amidst accusations by the opposition coalition CORD that there are plans to water it down. But the Jubilee administration insists it will bring any perpetrators of land infringements to book.
If Orengo could actually preside over such a thing, that he watched that thing, that kind of a thing, happen and take place when he was a minister in charge of land, then it means that we lie to Kenyans through and through.
It is not clear how long the investigations on the Lamu allocations will take, but the majority of Lamu residents, especially the indigenous communities, remain landless. Ben Kitili, KTN.
And that is the focus of our discussion on Checkpoint a little later on in this bulletin. So do stay with us and keep your comments coming in and your questions, because we will have those that will give you the answers. The hashtag on Twitter is Checkpoint, and of course on SMS 22155. Let's take you further afield now, where several African leaders have begun to arrive in the U.S. capital for the historic U.S.-Africa summit due to open tomorrow. Up to 47 heads of state and government have been invited for the conference that will focus on security and trade. President Uhuru Kenyatta left the country this afternoon for the U.S. His visit will focus on strengthening ties between the U.S. and Kenya in trade, capital investment, infrastructure, energy, and security. And as KTN's Joe Ageo now reports from the United States, opinion remains divided over how much can be achieved at the summit.
In the lovely summer weather of the U.S. capital, nearly 50 African presidents and prime ministers are arriving for what is seen as an attempt to craft President Obama's legacy on Africa as he begins his final 2 years in office.
The summit reflects a principle that has guided my approach to Africa ever since I became president, that the security and prosperity and justice that we seek in the world cannot be achieved without a strong and prosperous and self-reliant Africa.
Kenya's Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohamed, who will be by President Uhuru's side here in Washington, says this will not be a begging mission for Africa.
It's really time, it's long overdue that we move this relationship to the economic sphere, right, where we can reap benefits and it can be almost a partnership.
The U.S.-Africa summit comes in the wake of what analysts have called a new scramble for Africa, as the West seeks a response to a Chinese onslaught on the continent. Economist James Shikwati believes there is more to the meeting than President Obama's stated love for the continent of his father.
Hello, everybody.
It's a matter of United States attempting to reframe how they engage Africa in light of the fact that they have a new competitor, of course, in the name of China.
China and other countries that do not prioritize human rights and democracy concerns as much, perhaps have an edge in making deals with certain regimes. But I don't think that edge is sustainable over the long term, nor is it in their own interest.
Also on the agenda of the meeting is peace and regional security.
South Sudan in crisis at the moment, but this is quite distinct from what Somalia has been experiencing, and it's quite distinct from what Kenya is experiencing right now.
The U.S. has constructed, right, a whole series of not just instruments that deal with terrorism, but also methods of dealing with terrorism. So that's what we hope we can benefit from.
Now, the US-Africa Summit will also discuss what the official schedule calls governance for the future, and whether by design or default, its start will also coincide with President Obama's birthday. But many analysts here say there won't be any goodies being dished out, at least not now. Joageo, KTN in the United States of America.
Indeed, and we'll continue to keep you updated on that summit. Let's go to environmental matters now. And the country's first ever weekly environmental feature on television, Eco Journal, is back. Tonight, we turn our attention to Uhuru, an agriculturally rich area known for its potatoes and maize. In recent years, however, changes in climate have led to low crop yields. Well, in a bid to cope with the unpredictable weather, some farmers are abandoning their traditional ways of farming. On Eco Journal tonight, Rita Tanina reports on Uhuru's new farming trend and the driving force behind it.
In agricultural circles, Uhuru is famous for its potatoes and maize. With cool temperatures and availability of land, the two have over the years been the crops of choice for many farmers. But now something seems to have changed in the once rich food basket in the highlands. The snowfall in 2008 may not have had any proper explanation, but here farmers know something about their climate is changing fast for the worse.
Like, for example, this year, there is no rain at all. So all the people who grew maize definitely will have to buy maize come next year.
And they are beginning to look for new ways to survive.
I grew maize and I grew beans, like my mother did. So I continued the same. But after training, this is where I really realized I was doing quite a big mistake.
On his 10-acre piece of land, Murugu Gateru has taken what to some farmers would amount to risky business. But it is paying off. Crops never before grown in this area are flourishing. The courgette you will find here is not your ordinary variety. Beetroot, cabbages, onions, peas and spinach are among crops that have taken over this space, once reserved for maize and beans.
Maize grows in the whole year. We plant in March and we harvest in November, December. When I learned that there are other varieties that can grow for twice in the year, I decided not to grow maize.
The new farming venture, which locals call Kilimo Biashara, Gateru says, makes economic sense and keeps him busy on the farm all year round.
I make sure that there is a crop that is being harvested every month, and there is another crop that is being transplanted, and there is another crop that I'm putting in the seedbed.
Gateru is able to beat the unpredictable weather, come rain or sunshine, thanks to the availability of water from a nearby stream, which is pumped into these tanks, then flows through gravity to his shamba. And produce from his farm is much sought after.
So the market is ready, and actually I cannot even satisfy the market.
Gateru owes his new approach to these women, the Ziwani Mogeko Women's Group.
Tukienda kwa mangurupu, wanakutana mangurufu wengi. Wakikutana, tunawasomesha vile watalima kilimo biashara.
Gateru is among dozens of farmers who have benefited from training from the women's group on alternative and sustainable agricultural methods.
I was opened up, and I decided to change, and the results can be seen.
County government wametupea jukumu ya kufusa watu Nyandarua mzima, kwa maana wakati walituita huko kwa show Kalau, waliona tukifundisha watu huko kwa show, wakaona tunafundisha mzuri.
In Maili, in the area of Uhuru, we find the women's latest venture, a greenhouse.
Hawa dona wanaitwa ACT walitusaidia sana, kwa sababu walitupatia pesa, wakatuambia tujenge greenhouse ya kufundisha watu.
The greenhouse, which is able to control climatic conditions of plant growth, ensures the capsicum crop does not fail. Water from a nearby well is used in the greenhouse. The women's group is going beyond just training on sustainable farming methods. It is also helping small-scale farmers to fetch better prices for their produce by eliminating brokers.
Tunatafuta market, hata kama ni Nairobi, kama ni Nakuru.
The group was formed in the year 2002, initially as a means of helping women save through collective efforts. 12 years later, the women are breaking new ground through their training.
Sasa wamama hatuna tambu. Hata nyumba zetu zimekuwa safi sasa kwa maana tuko na pesa.
For an area that once experienced snow, farmers in the Maili area are not leaving anything to chance. Greenhouse farming enables them to escape the vagaries of weather. And the collective farming initiative by the Ziwani Mugeko Women's Group ensures they have enough on their tables and a little extra in their pockets. Rita Tinina, KTN, Uhuru.
Of course, EcoJournal comes back again next Sunday. Do look out for that. It is recommended that a newborn baby is breastfed exclusively for at least 6 months. Well, it is emerging that many mothers are not comfortable with this arrangement and are instead weaning the babies very early on in their lives. In Baringo, the Cabernet District Hospital is introducing an awareness campaign to boost exclusive breastfeeding for newborns from the current 47%. And as KTN's Kamche Menza reports, this comes as the World Breastfeeding Week begins today.
It's yet another special day for these joyful women who flock this dispensary to take advantage of clinic services and training on how well and how important exclusive breastfeeding is to their babies. They say they have never taken exclusive breastfeeding very seriously. Instead, they introduced their babies to other kinds of food. This is just a small portion, though, of the larger number of lactating mothers in Baringo who still lack this knowledge.
Ya kwanza nilikuwa nikizaa na kumpa mtoto chakula kama maji, kama tawa ya kienyeji, na mtoto hakuna shida ya tumbo kila saa. Lakini wa kwanza si kunyonyesha miezi 6, kunyonyesha miezi 4.
Most of the mothers here, however, say even though they lacked the skills, they would also have been hindered by other barriers such as household chores.
Na mtoto ndio huyu anataka kunyonya, chakula ni kidogo, ndio hiyo kazi iko kubwa sana. Sasa hapo tunashindwa na kunyonyesha mtoto.
In addition, a traditional drug believed to protect the baby against diseases, they say, is usually administered to the babies just a few days after delivery, which interferes with exclusive breastfeeding.
Ilikuwa ni kuosha tumbo ya mtoto. Sikuwa na kinga ya kusema mtoto yangu uweze patiwa hii. Lakini hii huyu sasa nilipojifungua kwa hii, hawa anajaribu kukuja na dawa, saa hiyo nikakuwa asha.
A number of women within the country face such challenges, which doctors say highly interferes with babies' immunity. This has also led to a number of interventions. Training for lactating mothers has been introduced at Cabernet Hospital.
The group that will have mixed feeding, they are breastfed, alternative feeds are introduced, but about 2/3 of those children will suffer repeated infections affecting the gastrointestinal tract.
Even if you are engaged in other cause, express breast milk. But now there's that taboo in Baringo. They don't feel like expressing breast milk is good. They look at it as a taboo.
And as the country joins the world to mark Breastfeeding Week, mothers are cautioned to ensure that they breastfeed their newborns within 30 minutes of delivery and extend it up to 6 months without introducing any other kind of food.
After 6 months, now you start introducing the complementary feeds. And these complementary feeds have to be adequate. And you continue breastfeeding for at least 2 years.
Kamche Menza, KTN from Baringo County.
Right, it's time to take a short break right now on KTN Weekend Prime. Remember, still to come in this bulletin, Mock the Week with Wilson Mburu, taking a lighter note on all the events that have taken place this week. You do not want to miss that. And also, Checkpoint right after this break. Checkpoint, with an honest interrogation of the critical issues in the revocation of titles in Lamu.
You are watching KTN Weekend Prime.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. It's now time for Checkpoint, and we want to discuss that directive that was made by the President on the land titles in Lamu. And any questions that you may have, we open this up for you. 22155 is our SMS number. We'll try and fit in as many of your questions as we can. My panel tonight, and of course, I also need to mention that we will be hearing from the Cabinet Secretary, Lands, Tjrc Ngilo. I spoke to her a little earlier this evening, and we'll be getting her input on Checkpoint tonight as well. My guests tonight, let's start on my extreme left, and that is Odenda Lumumba, who's from the Kenya Land Alliance and was also very instrumental in the Dungu Land Commission. We thank you for joining us. And we have the Director of Survey within the Ministry of Lands, Cesare Mbaria. Thank you. He'll be able to give us the technical bits, how this audit came to be, what they found, and what's next. And then right next to him, we have Edwin Sifuna, who's an advocate and a regular on Checkpoint. And then right next to me, Peter Kariuki, who is the advisor on governance, accountability, and delivery in the Executive Office of the President. We thank you all for joining us this evening. Let's start right off the bat and start clearing some maybe myths, controversies. And was the President within his rights under the Constitution to make the directive that he did? And I think perhaps we'll start off with the person who in this room is closest to the President and would be able to speak with authority on that. Let's start with you, Peter. Was he within the law?
Indeed, he is within the law. Because as you understand, the President has a duty and is duty bound to uphold both the Constitution and the laws ensuing from that particular framework. And as we shall be discussing later on, once he was satisfied that there was and there is ground for the action that he directed to be taken or to be initiated, he then acted within the law. In pursuant to the provisions, as we shall be describing a bit later.
Okay, let's go to you, Odenda. Do you agree?
I think the President, to understand whether the President was within the law or not, I think you need to reflect on the issue of legitimacy, legality, and the practice. I think the President had a legitimate reason to be concerned and to give a sense of what ought to be done. But definitely the government, the President, exercise a very bad approach to dealing with an issue as emotive and sensitive as land is concerned. Legally and constitutionally, the mandate of dealing with management of public land, investigating any contemporary historical land injustice issues, lies with the National Land Commission. The National Land Commission not only advises on opinion how to deal with land matters, coordinates varied management agencies on public land matters, and essentially it is the one which audits in terms of knowing the events of public land.
Okay.
And therefore the President is no longer exercising the executive power over land matters. That ceased in an old constitutional dispensation.
Right. Okay, Odenda, there are some that say that the President himself did not revoke the titles, but asked the National Land Commission. Dr. Mohamed Swazuri has said, yes, that is in line with what he did, that he didn't do it himself. Edwin?
Well, the problem with that is the National Land Commission is an independent commission that is not supposed to receive directives from any other agency or entity. And the problem with the directive that the President gave is that it has given those people who might have actually grabbed this land a backdoor to escape from the punishment that they deserve. Because you will remember, you cannot ask somebody to investigate and yet you've already told them what action they are supposed to take. I agree with my friend here when he says the law is very clear. If you look at section 14 of the Land Commission Act, that there is a set procedure
that it's only the National Land Commission, after even giving an opportunity for the people who've been accused of grabbing land to be heard, so that they make that determination, and then it's only the Land Commission that will direct the registrar to cancel the title.
Right.
But if you've already said this is what you should do, cancel the titles, jail people. What is the purpose of having a hearing before the National Land Commission if there's a predetermined outcome?
Okay, let's understand how this all came to be. Cesare, you are Director of Survey and obviously very key in this position. Tell us about how the audit came up and how it was done.
Thank you, Yvonne. First, the question is very clear that all land belongs to Kenyans, to the people of Kenya collectively, as a nation, as a community, and also as individuals. Also, in the Bill of Rights, Article 40, every person has a right to own property in any part of the country. However, this right under Section 6 does not extend to illegal or unlawful acquisition of land. Now, in this context, when you look at the way it was done, first, there was no land to be allocated in Lamu. In Lamu, we have what used to be called the government land or the public land now, right? And what the county councils were doing then is to make applications to the ministry, and the minister then gave approval, and the Commission of Lands went ahead to allocate this land, which is in itself illegal because it is not within their mandate to do that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So this was, you say, sanctioned by the Minister of Lands? In your investigation, in your audit, this was sanctioned by the Minister of Lands at the time?
In audit, we found that what was being done was illegal as stated.
Okay.
And you may go further. In the Constitution of Kenya, we had said as Kenyans that the public land should not be dealt with until we had the National Commission in place.
Yes.
Two, under the transitional to devolved governments, number 1 of 2012, this transitional act had put a moratorium that there will be no dealings of assets.
So that moratorium existed.
Yes. And the three, if I continue, is that, and remember, even in 2011, the cabinet itself had freezed the transactions of all this land.
So if all of that was done, how then was it sanctioned? Odenda,
I think we are basically splitting hairs here. I say that what we are looking at right now does not seem to add up. I think land reforms in this country is the most badly understood thing, as much as it is really of political importance. Because by 2011, we had a new constitution in place. It was effective as of August 27th, 2010. And therefore, for anybody to purport that the minister was authorizing this, it just doesn't even wash, because there was no powers that the minister would have done. One of the things I find very unacceptable is the way people can conceal crime of this nature knowingly. Because our colleague here was in the Ministry of Lands. He might not have been the director of survey. There were directors in charge of administration of land. There was the Commission of Lands. All the law was very clear to them. And they can find ignorance when crime is being committed and conveniently come to tell us how they will do this. I would even challenge the former minister. He should not only be telling us whether he will expose anybody. The question is, crime was committed. Are any Kenyans aware about this crime? Did they keep silent? Failure to prevent a felony in this matter, they are all culpable.
Okay, all right. Would you like to?
I think I need to come in there. And I'm a bit surprised by my colleague Odenda. But I'll take one thing which I agree with him. He says a crime was committed. Good. The Constitution in Article 62, 3 and 4 does vest public land in the county governments and the national government to be administered by the National Land Commission. Section 2 of the 6th schedule of the same Constitution, 4, suspended those provisions until the National Land Commission was in place. And therefore, the period within which Odenda is talking about, the national government was still administering the question of national land until the National Land Commission came into office. Now, the issue of whether or not persons are culpable, that is why the president is clear. He is directing the current, cabinet secretary and the National Land Commission, which, and you saw the chairperson was present when the statement was being made,
right,
to begin that process. Revoking is not going and putting an X. There's a process stipulated in the law. And they, both the cabinet secretary, whatever role she has, the National Land Commission, their role, they will follow the law as is. And they will go look at the fires, look at the date plans, look at the physical planning plans, give notice as is required in the law for any person interested who has information or an interest in these particular parcels of land to come and put forth their case, as it were. This will be done. The issue is where either illegality or irregularity is established. If it is illegality, the law is clear, revoke the title. If it is irregularity, the law is clear, the commission has the mandate to seek to regularize that which do not follow due process.
Edwin, is this all being politicized, Edwin?
Well,
is court taking this too far? Some say the president is coming from a good place.
Well, as a Kenyan, I will tell you that his intentions are intentions that I also share, because I think for every Kenyan, we want to see this matter addressed once and for all. We've been told for the longest time that land is a very emotive matter, that we can't even have a discussion about it. Now that it has started from the highest office in the land, it is very good that we actually have this discussion. And for me, I never thought a day would come when I would agree with what Aden Duale or the leader of majority in the House said, and even Senator Kindiki, that a thief is a thief and a land grabber is a land grabber. So that we are not interested in allocating political blame. We don't want to even out the numbers and have an equal number across the political divide. Everyone who's responsible must be brought to account.
Even if that falls within court.
And that's what I'm telling you. If anyone tells you that the problem of land in Lamu began in 2011 and 2012, they're lying to you. But if we have to start with James Orengo and then come to the other people, well and good, for as long as we will come to all the historical injustices in this country that pertain to land. So that is where I stand on that matter.
All right, and we'll come to the Tjrc in just a moment, because that was one of those that was meant to address those historical injustices. Cesare, you wanted to add something?
Yes, following on that, on the presidential powers, if you look at the Articles 66(1), the state may regulate the land use in public interest, for public good, for public order, for public safety, for defense, for morality,
public health,
and public health, and so forth. So the question is, what was done? Was it right? And did the president have the powers? Yes. If you look at Articles 103 on the powers of the president, the president is the head of state and government.
And it is that state that is being referred to in Article 66.
It is within his powers to do what? To do what he did.
All right.
Can we clarify one thing?
Yes.
I think we are not contending the legitimacy of the president to help direct the nation. We are questioning the legality and the practice of what the president did. And the reason is simply this. The same constitution conveniently we are referring to clearly vests the powers of dealing with this matter with the National Land Commission. In the legislation, the same constitution provides parameters which would have saved us from this agony of 500,000 acres being given out. It provides that a legislation will be enacted to prescribe the minimum and maximum. Has this been done? Who is sleeping in this time? The same constitution provides that the Parliament will enact a legislation to direct on the review of any grants or disposition of public land to establish the propriety and legality. This is the core of the matter. Why aren't we having this being done as a substantive law or even as a subsidiary law by way of rules and regulation? Where's the direction? Why are we having the cabinet secretary in charge of matters land being put on the pedestal with the commission being made the appendage in this matter?
Okay, understood. Edwin, just very quickly, because I'd like us to introduce something.
Well, just something that I wanted to correct him. Actually, the National Land Commission Act has already set out that procedure. What we are saying is that the president has no mandate to direct that the commission revoke a title or not. The commission has the powers to investigate all these things, and you remember that investigation is even subject to the Article 47, which requires fair administrative action, and it will actually be subject to review to a court if it's seen not to have been done in a fair manner. So any of the lawyers who would want to defend these 22 companies will have a very easy time defending them, because you see that the matter is coming to the Land Commission once a predetermined outcome has already been given to them.
Okay, all right. We spoke to the Cabinet Secretary, Tjrc on this issue, and and we'll come back and get your reactions on that. And when I spoke to her on phone a little earlier this evening, I asked her, there was an audit that was done in May earlier this year. Why didn't this come up? 400,000 acres, 400,000 acres, 400,000 acres. Why did this not come up then? Listen to what she had to say.
In the right order. But that is when we were also picking and removing some of the files that have now given us the information. You remember it was last year, September 2nd, when we were in Lamu, Pate Island, that the president directed me to give thorough audit to who owned land where, because Governor Timami of Lamu County said that don't issue title deeds as yet until a thorough audit and investigations have been done as to who have benefited with the Lamu land. And that is what I did. And I just gave the report.
Once we come back, she says it was not an audit, it was rather just a reorganization of files. And it ties into a question from one of our viewers. Peter Simon Akako on Twitter says, why wait for the crisis in Lamu to then do an audit? Peter, would you like to take that?
No, I think, I don't know if they had it clearly. When the president, the deputy president and the minister were in Lamu last year, issuing an initial batch of title deeds along the coastal region, the county government of Lamu did request the president then and said, Your Excellency, we do have a land problem in this county. We request that you, as you're going on with this work, kindly have an audit done.
Yes, and she mentioned that.
And she's mentioned that.
Yes, she has.
Now, that is the county government leadership. The president, in their hearing, directed the cabinet secretary, Tjrc, to initiate that process, which has gone on for quite some time now. Now that has just recently been completed. The president, remembering that it was the county government that asked for this information, did call them to State House last week. He sat with them for 2 days. You're talking about the leadership of the county, almost 100 people.
But just allow me to cut in, because some say this happened only after the killings in Lamu took place.
Yvonne, let's the thing is, it's useful to be factual. The fact is, the county government did request the president to carry out an audit, and the president directed the CS to do the audit in their hearing. September 2nd, you've heard her say that. So let's not begin to bring other issues to confuse her. That audit has been ongoing for those months.
And the results are what?
The results are now out this week.
All right.
To which the leadership was first called before the president made a statement. They were called, they were taken through the results. They saw, they interacted, they asked their questions, they raised their things to clarify, and together they came out and the president issued a statement.
Okay. All right.
The question that I would have for him is this. because the percentage of land that is allegedly grabbed that we were given was only as regards arable land. Was that what the county leadership had asked for? Did they ask for an audit of arable land, as I understand is land that is farmable? Because if you look at the problem in Coast, one of the biggest issues is to do with beach plots. Beach plots, as I understand them, cannot be arable land. So we need to be told what percentage of land in Lamu, first of all, is arable. And then when you throw out a figure like 70%, and I've seen even in the media, people have lost the original statement by the president that said it's only 70% of arable land, and now we're being told it's 70% of Lamu.
The director of survey might be able to give us some facts on that one. Cesare?
Yes.
What percentage of land is it that is in the hands of alleged grabbers?
Indeed, Yvonne, is 70% of the land in Lamu, which means we remain only with 30%.
And that land includes
communities.
Okay.
And this is what we are saying, that is it morally right? Is it in public interest to have 70% and that 22 companies?
That is fine. Can you tell us about the specific land? Because we know about 3 births that were also allegedly grabbed. What was the nature of the land, the 70% that we're talking about? Arable land, beaches, what did it constitute?
Yes, because all of them, you know, this 70% we are talking about here. From our records, we find they were referring to it as agricultural land, which in itself was wrong, because indeed even the process of allocating that is very clearly indicated in the Government Land Act Cap 280, which requires that we have the planning, the survey, the auctioning, and then the bidder, and then the allocation of the same.
Okay.
And all what we are saying, this was illegal.
All right.
I think we need to correct the fact. The percentage is not 70%. Lamu is about 6,498, if I'm not wrong, square kilometers. It cannot add to 70% to start with. And even if it were, because there have been innuendos about this, that this was because much land had been taken, it had caused strife in that place. The strife we know of lately was in Pekuten, which is then, if that argument is to go by, is the 30%. So are we saying somebody left 70% where it was important to fight and went and fought in 30% to cause insecurity? The other thing which I need to say,
yes,
when we talk about Lamu and we talk about security, we should also remember security of tenure. What the president announced is that amount to tenure insecurity, because he basically threatened the title, regardless whether you're a third-party title holder, or notwithstanding that even those whom we are investigating, the title they have up to now, we are yet to be told whether they are not valid titles.
Okay.
So if you do that, who else is going to be safe
about
the title? So I think it is a question where we need to know what facts are we putting to people.
All right, very quickly, because we're now coming to the close of our discussion, and I'd like to start with you, and we'll have the last word from you, Peter, in just a moment. Tjrc, Ndungu Land Report, you were part of the Ndungu Land Commission. Just very quickly, would these provide the solutions? Do you think the president should actually be going to the Tjrc, as some say that he's not, dealing with it holistically as he should? Just
very quickly, I would basically say that the Ndungu report is very exhaustive. The Ndungu report had gave direction, which would apply in this matter squarely. The failure to implement the Ndungu report is really an indictment on the part of those responsible to do the implementation. I think what we are failing here to see is that regardless whether the report is Tjrc, whether it's Ndungu report, we have an executive made up of elites who are resistant to land reforms. And it's vested interest, pure and simple. They could be commercial, they could be communal in nature, but the bottom line, there's a resistance to implement land reforms in the country. So it doesn't matter which report, not even this audit report. If you asked me if the track record is anything to go by, I would tell you the probability that we'll ever implement the result of anything out of this is absolutely zero.
Okay. Cesare, let's just wind up with you very quickly. What next now? What's the next stage?
Yvonne, the next stage is very clear, is to have the law takes its course, because it is very clear if something was given illegally, then it is the law to take its course.
Okay, all right, well put. Edwin, I know it's time, so I hate to rush you here a little bit here.
I honestly would have supported the idea if the presidency had gone about it in the way that it is stipulated by the law. But as it is right now, I really suspect that most of these accused people are going to get away, simply because, first of all, the concept of land grabbing, as I understand it, is with respect to first allocations. There is a protection under Section 14, subsection 7 of the Land Commissions Act, for people who are innocent purchasers for value. So if these people are not initial allottees, then there's really nowhere this thing is going. And also, the fact that the president had given specific directives on what needs to happen, that is a revocation of the titles. That is making a predetermination before the process that has been set out under Section 14, before the Land Commission, so that anyone making a claim under Article 47 that he was not subjected to a fair administrative process would have a fairly good chance of actually winning that particular case.
Okay, Peter, as we conclude, can you address that a little bit?
Very
He's
quickly.
talking about the legal aspect of this.
Very quickly, when does the administrative process begin? Mr. Sifuna, you're an advocate.
Before the Land Commission.
One month before the Land Commission.
Yes.
And so the administrative process has not as yet begun, even after the president has directed. So the actual administrative process shall begin when we shall see the National Land Commission issuing a notice and the steps that will proceed thereafter. So Mr. Sifuna can wait to see.
What happens to the president's directive?
One moment, allow me to finish. So if you're talking about a fair administrative process, the administrative process has yet to begin. The president has pronounced himself as the head of state of the Republic of Kenya, which he is well placed to do, to uphold the law and the constitution of the republic. He is also can exercise an independent opinion in that respect, and now the institutions that are responsible for this will begin to carry out that responsibility. And I want to say this as I conclude. Many people do not expect that the Jubilee government headed by His Excellency the President Uhuru Kenyatta will deal with the land question as they're dealing with now. My colleague Odenda Lumumba, myself, have been dealing with the land question for many years. And now I'm surprised that when things are beginning to be done, now is when they begin to cry that, hey, wait a minute.
Okay.
The government,
you can't go with that.
1 minute.
All right. No, honestly, we're out of time, gentlemen.
We're committed, and I can tell you, we shall respect the law. We shall respect the law, which is why the president did direct the responsible institutions. And they will
deal with it.
Okay,
I am so sorry because I have to cut you off.
And we are dealing with this in accordance with the Article 60D, which calls for transparent and cost-effective administration of land.
Thank you very much. I don't mean to be rude, but we are completely out of time. And I thank you all for coming in and for your insights. Of course, we wait to see what happens. The registries at the coast have now been closed, and the CS in lands will be taking a look at what's happening there. So this is something we'll continue to report about as we carry on. I will be taking a look at some of your feedback on Twitter and on SMS, so keep it coming. You've been watching Checkpoint. Right, so thank you for staying with us. So we carry on with our bulletin. Now, a hostile working environment is a nightmare to any person. And as President Uhuru Kenyatta found out this week, asking for help does not necessarily go as well as one might want. Now, but for others, work might just be what you need to get the girl of your dreams. All that in this week's episode of Mock the Week with Wilson Buru.
The 31st week of the year, a week to celebrate this wonderful thing we call love.
Talk about love, talk about trust.
A popular Swahili saying goes, baniani mbaya, kiatu chake dawa. But for one guy, that saying translates to something like, baniani mrembo, mahaba yake ndo mambo.
Alikuwa ameanza kuosha gari na mimi nikimingilia kuwa, how can two people wash one car?
Yes, who said ladies can't make the first move? However, I'm sure after making the first move, she stepped back and waited for this Prince Charming to come after her.
Nikaanza kumfuata, nikitafuta namba yake, nikijaribu kuongea naye.
Namba yangu sikumpea. Kabidi hata simu nifiche. And after being chased around for a while, this tall, dark and handsome young man was finally boxed in, and he did what we African men know all so well how to do. He gave his bride a jembe.
Hakuna mtu kutisha hapa butu. Na hao akome kukucha hapa kuangaisha mlamwe yangu.
But above all, an important lesson, that love is blind and knows no boundaries. The lesson we are learning from this story is this. Ladies, a relationship is bound to last longer if you do the chasing.
We've been in a relation of 4 years.
And from that heartwarming tale of two lovebirds, let's go to another kind of love that is in some sort of gray area. Yes, it was that time of the year when the two houses of parliament took their disagreements out on a fair playing field. Here, there would be no tyranny of numbers. And finally, the Senate won, thanks to the ladies, and the celebrations started. But it turned out it was still too early to celebrate. Call it premature celebration. When it was discovered that they could not decide which of the two houses the lower house was, they decided to duel. So, they brought in the heavyweights. Literally, the heavyweights. At the end of the day, this became a futile effort to try and declare anybody the winner. And after some dialogue, they decided to share the trophy Nusumkate style.
There is no winner, there will be a rematch. Once you are defeated, you accept.
Now, earlier this year, we ran a story of a prosecutor who received a lot of backlash for going to work drunk. First of all, this guy was not drunk. He was walking. Let me show you an example of proper drunkenness. Secondly, let's look at the real issue here. Is it wrong for our court-appointed officials to be going to work inebriated? Our senior reporter on court drunkenness, Jerry Mushura, investigates.
I'm here. This is Joseph Kiaria. He's generally a happy guy. On this day and several other days, Kiaria went to work having indulged in 1 or 2 or maybe 15 frothy drinks. But it would seem that the people he served were tired of his general happiness.
Hata akionjiwa na waandishi wa habari alikuwa akiwaambia yeye ni mwanaume na yeye ameumbika ni mwanaume tosha.
But what those who were complaining did not ask is, if you were in Kiaria's position, would you go to work sober? Let's look at where people of Kiaria's caliber work. This is the prosecutor's office in Runyenjes, a beautifully constructed shack. But that's not even the worst of it. If you're a man and arrested in Bomet, you'll have the luxury of using this structure as you wait for your trial. And if you feel like going pee-pee, here's your toilet.
Nikaonelea kinyumba kimekaa kama mahali ng'ombe zinalala.
And don't even get me started on the magistrate's chambers.
We always fear even the criminals can attack you, given the distance from where I'm sitting.
In Marimati, the files registry is also the kitchen. Yes, they make their tea using the baby maker right next to these shelves with all of the necessary files. But what's the worst that could happen? It's not like there are any children to play with matches, right? This is basically our justice system outside Nairobi, where files, tea, and fire make for strange bedfellows.
So the question begs, who in their right mind would go to work sober under these conditions? I wouldn't. Would you?
Another victim of a hostile working environment is President Uhuru Kenyatta, who wants the fellows from the opposition to make life just a little bit easy for him.
Wacha tu tumalize vile ilikuwa, tuendelee.
According to the president, these fellows are opposing almost everything that the government is doing and planning to do. Wait a minute. What is the definition of the opposition again?
Our business as opposition is not helping the government to achieve its agendas.
And you can do all the propagandas that you want, but immediately you start setting wananchi against each other. That one is wrong.
And we are not going to babysit the government in its role that they have failed in.
Can they give us space also so that they will be having, they will have a chance to question us in 2017?
At the end of the day, what matters is how the government is performing. If you're going to tell people you haven't eaten since morning, why not wipe the food remnants from your mouth first? But I interrupted you. You were making a point.
Mimi nategemea mzungu. Na hakuna mzungu sababu ya uongozi wa Raila na Kalonzo na Uhuru Kenyatta. Nilikuwa nikifanya pamoja. Sasa hizi kwa kazi sababu yao wanapigania uongozi. Huo uongozi wakae mzuri wote wawili. Tupate wageni kuja. Uongozi huo ni nini? Wao wanataka uongozi na una mali. Sisi watoto wao wanasoma laya na sisi watoto wetu wanasoma hapa tuna mali. Na sisi ndio tunapigia kura. Mimi nasikia mbaya sana. Kwanza wote watoka kabisa kwa hiyo kiti. Sina haja na wao. Wakae vizuri waongee. Tupate wageni na tuishi vizuri pia.
Wilson Buru for KTN's Mock the Week.
We're taking a short break right now. Any feedback you've got on Mock the Week and indeed on Checkpoint, keep them coming. I'll be sampling them as we carry on with this bulletin. But coming up, we have the sports news for you and we'll be talking about Harambee Stars. In Africa Cup of Nations by Minnows Lesotho. Kenya's Stars were held to a barren draw by the Southern African side who advanced to the next stage of the qualifiers with a 1-0 aggregate win.
National soccer team Harambee Stars technical bench has been dismissed by the National Association Football Kenya Federation. This comes after the national team's stab at the Africa Cup of Nations was dented by Lesotho at the Nyayo National Stadium on Sunday. With Adel Amrusha serving a calf band, the touchline reins was left to James Nando and Ken Odhiambo. The Stars lacked depth, creativity and energy against a Lesotho side that had been regarded as a walkover by many fans when the draw was made. Harambee Stars with their foreign legend led by Dennis Oliech and McDonald Mariga looked out of sorts as they fluffed their chances up front. Peter Pio was the visible of the midfield cog, but the one-man show could just not unlock the Lesotho defense who were out to run down the clock and frustrate the home team. Aaron Lavatsa was outmuscled by the Lesotho team on the right-hand side. Wilson Oburu at goal had minimal ball contact as both sides concentrated in the midfield. There was nothing to show for the first half as the teams cancelled each other out. The introduction of speedy Paul Were added the much-needed impetus to a weary Stars side, but his touches lacked a finish up front. Elmerex Alan Wanga, who came in the second half, fluffed his chances as Kenya looked for a goal that could at least take the match beyond the normal time. Lesotho keeper parried every effort that was thrown at him by the Stars as the visitors left the Nyayo National Stadium unscathed. 0-0 the final score as the Crocodiles of Lesotho celebrated a historic win that takes them to the next round of the Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers. With the 1-0 win, a goal they scored at their backyard. Irate fans poured their frustrations into the pitch. Other than being bundled out of the qualifiers, Kenya could face another penalty from the Confederations of African Football (CAF). The federation is adamant that they have created an enabling environment for the team, but the loss means they slept on the job. However, fans felt they got a raw deal on Sunday.
Hii federation yenye run football ya wazee waachie sasa vijana wa run football. Tumechoka nao, hawawezi manage football ya Kenya tena, tuko disappointed.
The football federation, the whole team should go home. We come up with a new team. They nurture young players to get Kenya to the next level.
Tunachezesha majina. That's the problem. Ukiangalia second half tumecheza vizuri sana na pressure baada ya kuingiza Paul Were na wakati pia Mariga alitolewa. Umeona timu imecheza vizuri. Coach angefanya hivi the first 25 minutes asome game alafu atoe Mariga na wengine. Hata Oliech alikuwa na jet lag. He didn't have to start. Kenya will now be spectators in the 2015 Africa Cup of Nations. A tournament they last graced about a decade ago. Hassan Juma, KTN Weekend Prime Sports.